Welcome to Inspired Living with Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector. Every Wednesday, Marc, along with his special guests, will explore thought-provoking topics and ideas that promote creativity, self-help, healing, happiness, and well-being to inspire you on your spiritual journey. Each week, Marc will discuss different paths to achieving a more spiritual, balanced, happy, and healthy lifestyle. Topics will elevate consciousness and range from metaphysics to the human and social experience and all things spiritual. Welcome to an inspired community that offers support, encouragement, and new ways of thinking. Marc is a tested, certified, and professional spiritual medium, metaphysical teacher, healer, and spiritual advisor with a spiritual practice based in Seattle, Washington. You are the inspired and the inspiration.
And good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, wherever you are at in this beautiful, changing planet of ours. This is Inspired Living. I am your host, Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, and as we always like to say, you are the inspired and the inspiration. So let's be inspired, let's inspire others, and let's inspire before we expire. Every moment is an opportunity here on Inspired Living to ignite your passion, your curiosities, and embrace the many mysteries, phenomenons, the unknown, the ordinary, and yes, the extraordinary. And I like to just say welcome to Inspired Living for what I like to call soul adventures, or another inspired episode to explore, discuss, and discover the many diamonds within each and every one of us, and the many hidden gems that have yet to be revealed to us and the rest of the world. I'm thrilled to have you join us today as we embark on a journey of inspiration, motivation, encouragement, and transformation. Whether you're tuning in from the comfort of your home, on the road, or wherever life takes you, this show is designed to uplift your spirit and empower your dreams. Inspired Living is all about fostering a supportive and empowering community. Each episode will highlight incredible guests who have overcome challenges, pursued their passions, and make a positive impact on their respective fields in our amazing and beautiful world. The journey matters, and we want to celebrate your victories no matter how big or how small. And together, we can cultivate a mindset of possibility and unlock the doors to our dreams. Inspired listeners can expect engaging discussions, thought-provoking questions, and, most importantly, actionable steps to manifest inspiration into your own reality. Of course, every show, we always give a big shout out and say thank you to all of our inspired listeners from around the globe, the universe, and beyond. The team and I are always so very humbled and grateful to you for listening, downloading, subscribing, leaving reviews, and voting to make Inspired Living not only a best inspirational show to follow, but also a best spiritual show now to follow, as referenced by FeedSpot. So we want to say, because of you, that's why we get these awards and these accolades. It's because of you. So we really appreciate it, and we really appreciate you for listening. If you've not yet subscribed, liked, or followed the show, there's always time to do so over on our main social media platforms. You can follow us over at Facebook. Just look for Inspired Living. Look on Instagram and Blue Sky, as well as X, formerly known as Twitter. Just look for Inspired for Us. You can also follow us on our YouTube channel, Inspired Living, and we are now streaming through Audible or wherever you get your favorite podcasts from. So get ready to be inspired, uplifted, encouraged, and motivated, because I always like to say the best is always yet to come. So let's go prospecting together, shall we? And today we're welcoming to the show for the first time Miss Lisa Campion, who is a professional psychic, a counselor, a Reiki master, and energy healer. And today we're going to be talking about the journey of awakening and working with our abilities on the very many different pathways that life offers us. And Eckhart Tolle reminds us that awakening is not a change of location, but a change of perception. We're going to talk all about that. And a little bit more about Lisa. Like I said, she's a master psychic, energy healer, and author who has dedicated her life to helping people across the world to access their intuition and inner power. With over 30 years of experience, Lisa has guided thousands of clients in their spiritual journey, combining practical tools with deep metaphysical wisdom. As the author of the best-selling books, The Art of Psychic Reiki and Energy Healing for Empaths, Lisa is passionate about empowering others to discover their own intuitive gifts. Her mission is to support empath, sensitives, and those awakening to their spiritual path in navigating life with clarity, confidence, and compassion. And if that word empath or sensitive doesn't mean much to you right now, I guarantee after the show, it'll have a lot more meaning as we have this nice, inspired conversation. Lisa's work has been featured on prominent podcasts, conferences, and media outlets where she inspires audiences to embrace their unique gifts and find healing through energy work. Her programs, her workshops, and coaching sessions provide actionable steps to unlock one's full potential and live a life of purpose. She is deeply committed to helping people live soul-aligned lives and believes that developing psychic abilities can lead to greater personal empowerment and healing. You can learn all about Lisa on all of our social media sites, and you can also go to her website, lisacampion.com. With no further delay, my friend Lisa, welcome to Inspired Living. How are you?
I'm so glad to be here with you today, Mark. Thanks for having me on your show.
Yeah, well, thanks for being here, and let's just jump right into it. So there was a lot of words I said in your bio that some of my listeners that may be new to the show may not have an understanding about what we're talking about. The word psychic, the word empath, the word sensitive, the word awakening, and what that all entails. So tell us a little bit about your journey and how you got started in all this, because I think that's important to tell the backstory of how somebody becomes aware and starts to acknowledge their own psychic abilities and gifts.
Yeah, it's a strange old story too, and it's pretty different from a lot of people's awakening story, because I think, I was born in the 60s, just outside Boston, and I was definitely one of those I see dead people kids. So I was born with my psychic gift and never remember a time in my life when I didn't have it. It's always been there.
Mm-hmm.
And it was weird. I mean, it's still a little weird, but, back then it was really weird to be a psychic child. And that what that meant was I saw colors around people. I knew things. I felt and sensed things. I could see dead people. I called them the gray people when I was little, and they would sit on the edge of my bed and be sad and tell me stories. I saw angels. I saw shadow spirits, and I experienced this whole level of reality that other people didn't seem to be experiencing, which was very confusing to me. And I spent a lot of time in my childhood trying to figure out what was going on, trying to sort of pretend to be normal in public. And my mom told me I had an imagination. Oh my gosh, what an imagination you have! And I was like, is it so? Like, really, is that? So I sort of went on a mission to figure out what it was, what I was supposed to do with it, and also how to turn it off. I spent the first 20 years of my life trying to figure out how to turn it off.
And that's very important. And for the listeners out there, there's a few ways that people can come into their abilities. For Lisa, she was naturally born with that. That's definitely one path. I can tell you, I was not naturally born with these abilities and gifts. I actually came through the doorway through severe grieving and death and dying that was presented in my personal journey. And that opened me up to, like I said at the beginning of the show, Eckhart totally talks about that awakening is not a change of location, but a change of perception. And so for the listeners out there, you may not have known about these abilities. You may not even know that it runs in your ancestry. I didn't know that it ran in my ancestry until a few years after I started to explore this. So you may be naturally born with it, or you may come into it based on what life puts in front of you to have these different abilities. And so I can imagine as a child growing up in Boston, that was pretty difficult. Love Boston. Big shout out to Boston. I was actually stationed there for 3 years. So we love Boston. We lived in South Weymouth, and I was in downtown Boston on the U.S. Coast Guard Cutter Spencer. So big shout out to Boston.
Nice.
But
awesome.
For you, that was probably pretty difficult. And one of the things I like to tell the listeners is in today's society, we sometimes look at people that have abilities and we can equate that with mental health issues. And I don't think that's it at all. I think that there's really mental health issues out there, but for people that have abilities like yourself and the work that I do, many times it would be confused. And I know from history past, indigenous people would actually surround people that were having an awakening or a spiritual connection. And they would actually surround them in community and help them get through that together. I don't know if that's in today's society where people like yourself are having these visions and these abilities, and you're talking to the gray people on the end of your bed, and then people look at you like, oh, she's crazy, and the next thing you know, it's a form of therapy or counseling. And I think we need to approach that in a different way to say, surround people that are having these abilities unlocked, because it can be pretty intense and scary. Wouldn't you agree? Pretty frightful to be talking with people that no one else is seeing.
That's right. It was terrifying. And it's funny because I knew even when I was really little that I couldn't really talk about it. And that talking about it would put you in the psych hospital. If you see
Mm-hmm,
angels
mm-hmm.
and talk to dead Uncle Fred, that's where you can go. And I didn't,
100%.
I don't even know if I knew what a psych hospital was, but I knew that I couldn't, that was a possibility, and that I really needed
Mm-hmm.
to be quiet. So I didn't share very often. I was really mindful, about who I talked to about it. And I just love your point about, lots of people. Sadly, that's happened to a lot of people, a lot of my students, and especially in the generations that were older than me. Really would psychic. I always say there's only a few letters difference between psychic and psychotic, and a lot of people
Yep.
will experience, people will think that you're crazy even if you're not, and unfortunately,
Yeah.
people would end up in in institutions for just having really strong gifts. I love that story about Indigenous people helping, because can be beautiful and can be amazing. But I think one of my specialties is working with people who are experiencing a psychic opening and need support, because some people have sudden psychic openings, some people come into it gently, it's sort of more gradual. But the people that come into it suddenly, it's very, very disorienting, upsetting, frightening, especially if you come from a faith tradition or family that thinks that's, wrong or evil or bad. You can be still quite isolated. And I think that, it was certainly rough for me, and I really feel that my purpose in life is to help other people go through it in an easier way than I did, because it wasn't so fun.
Yeah, and let's talk about one of the positive things that we can find in today's society is if you and I were having the same conversation 100, I'd say 80 to even 100 years ago, especially as spirituality started to come into the mainstream right about the middle of the 1800s.
Right.
Many times people were persecuted and put in jail or
Yep.
even put to death. And so the positive aspect of this conversation is we have progressed. And I really do think, Lisa, you and I are the generation to where we're realizing that there's a bigger truth than what society doesn't want to talk about, because they just don't necessarily understand it. And from a human condition, when we don't understand something, we go to that place of fear, a learned behavior. We want to go back to a comfort. Maybe it's religion or how you were raised by your parents. It's that fear-based energy. And I can tell you, I like how you said that there's a few letters between psychic and psychotic, because for those of us that have gone through this, there are points in the journey that you feel like you're psychotic. Like you're like, why is this happening to me? Why am I seeing this? What's the whole point of all this? And so, as my mentor once told me many times, many are called, few are chosen. And I know that, Lisa, in the work you do, and the passion and the intent of why you're doing it is in the short term, it's being in service to others and being in service to yourself, to understand your gifts and abilities so you can apply that to the world. And Thich Nhat Hanh, who I have followed his work for many, many years, he talked about the moment you recognize what is beautiful in yourself, you bring a precious gift into the world. And that's always kind of stuck with me, because what you're doing, Lisa, is you are bringing your developed abilities, education, logic, and understanding of who you are into the world to help other people. And so that's why I love talking. I love these shows because they go by so quick, but there's so much we want to get to. But as far as how can you, let's just start from the beginning. How can someone begin to develop their psychic abilities? Because there's a difference between psychic and mediumship. I will want to point that out at some point in the show, because people lump those two together, and those are not the same. Even if they don't feel like they have this natural gift, and they come back to the word natural, ancient gifts that many humans around the world all can access through free will and choice. But how can you, as a teacher, as an educator, as a healer, how can you help somebody begin to develop their psychic abilities?
I think it's really important what you said, Mark, about, everyone can do this if you're willing to put the time into it, because I believe that everyone has a certain amount of psychic ability, like musical ability or athletic ability. We've all got it, we've all had some. And whether or not you access it or not, like I think there's a myth that you don't have to practice. You're just amazing right out of the gate. You don't have to work at it. And, you and I both know that's not true. Like, any skill, if you want to be a professional athlete, if you want to be a professional musician, if you want to be a professional psychic, you have to work it and spend a lot of time practicing and, fine tuning your skills. And I also think that's cool because that means anybody who's interested in this can take the time, if you're willing to spend the time to work on it. Really, anyone can open. I've never met anyone that had nothing. So, anyone can open what they have if you're willing to do the work. And I think like one of my favorite starter exercises is to create the psychic journal. And I used to tell people to, go to CVS and buy a 99-cent journal and write psychic journal on the top. And then I actually published one of my own because it's such an important tool. But in this journal, you're going to write down all of the intuitive psychic experience you're already having. So, for example, if you dream at night, write your dreams down. If you pull oracle cards, write them down. If you have that really strong impression when you meet somebody for the first time, write it down. If you have like that little voice that comes into your head and says, take the back roads today, there's a backup on the highway, or the signs and omens, you look at the clock, it's 11:11, or you think about your grandpa and the radio plays his favorite song. All those little things, you can have like sort of pretty intense psychic revelations, and they are very dreamlike. So if you don't capture them, you might be like, oh my gosh, that was so intense, and it's so meaningful. If you just don't capture it, like hours, days later, it's gone by and you've forgotten it, just rather like a dream. So I guarantee it, if you start a psychic journal, you're going to be, first of all, amazed how psychic you already are. And second of all, whatever we pay attention to increases. So it's going to kind of increase your awareness, your attention, and start exercising the muscle. Psychic's like a muscle, to get some reps in with increasing the muscle of your psychic ability.
Yeah, well said and well put. Start with a basic journal and call it the psychic journal. One of the things, there's a couple of nuggets in there that I want to explore a little bit deeper is let's talk about the word psychic just as a word. Where does that word come from, psychic? Because when I started this journey almost 20 years ago, gosh, has it been already 2 decades? I guess it has. When I started to become aware of my abilities, because awareness is the greatest agent for change, right? And that awareness is, okay, what's going on here? Because I didn't understand that I had the ability, both in my family, but also through the course I was taking in college, nothing to do with spirituality, nothing to do with psychic or mediumship. And all of a sudden, through the power of meditation, different forms of meditation, I'm having a conversation with my brothers that had died years previous. And it's like, how is that even possible? So in my mind, when I started to think of the word psychic, at that time, there was a lady on the television called 1-800-Psychic Wanda to get your future. Oh my God. And I was thinking, oh my God, I don't want to do, that's not what I want to do. I don't want to tell anybody their future, right? But I wanted to understand. Yeah, and I wanted to understand what was going on with me. And so one of the first things and this is for the listeners too, if you're having these abilities that Lisa and I are talking about today, first thing is look at the word psychic, because the word psychic has nothing to do with entertainment, has nothing to do with telling somebody's future. The word is Greek, means psychosis, which means of the soul. And there's a quote from Marianne Williamson that said, she said this, and this helped on my journey. She said this, quote, "Our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure," end quote. And that's by the great Marianne Williamson. And I remember that going, oh, wow. So the word psychic actually means of the soul, and your free will and choice to start looking at that and go deeper with all the examples you just gave, from the dreamscape to the synchronicities, to the coincidences, to the numerology. You start to unlock what I call the language of spirit. And I love that you've put the work in, because you're right. What you put in, you get out. And just like a lawyer or a doctor or a plumber or a carpenter, they all have tools and they all go through training. And I always say to my students and my listeners, if you're going to do this work, put yourself through the ringer, put yourself through these hoops, get accredited, get certified, get validated, have testimonials, because it's not about you. It's about the work you're doing for spirit. And that helps other people connect to you through those, accreditations or certifications or workshops. So if you're opening to this awakening journey that we're talking about today, get a psychic journal and start writing stuff down, including your dreams, because the mind is more active asleep than it is right now awake listening to our show. So, Lisa, what advice, because you use the word empath in your bio, some people may not know what that word is, empath or sensitive. What advice would you give to people that are learning about being empathic or sensitive, or starting to realize maybe I do have some psychic abilities that these two are talking about today? How can you give them some advice to not feel drained with the interactions of the material world? We call them energy vampires, life vampires. There's a lot of chaos out in the world, and it can be easily drained if you're not protecting your abilities. How would you go about developing somebody on that approach?
I think that's such a great question, and we're coming into the holidays. I don't know about like your shopping during the holidays. You're an empath, right? You're like, I can't but you know, empaths are different. It's like different from the psychological experience of empathy. When we, you know, look at somebody, we're like, oh, look at them. They look like they're suffering, you know, and we kind of see it and feel sympathy for them. Being an empath is different. That's when we're sitting with somebody and we absorb their energy. We experience their feelings, thoughts, physical sensations as if it's ours. So you might sit next to somebody on the bus, and then all of a sudden you're like, oh my God, I have a headache. I feel like so depressed. And I'm like, you know, my thinking is so negative right now. And you have absorbed that from the other person, but you experience it like it's you. And this can make you feel like you're crazy, make you feel like, you know, like what's wrong with me? I remember thinking like, what is wrong with me? Like, why am I such an emotional hot mess? And until I realized, like 50% of the stuff I was feeling wasn't even mine, you know? And that's why energy hygiene, energy management, and that book, Energy Healing for Empaths, is really all about how do we learn to manage our energy? How do we ground ourselves? How do we clear the energy we pick up from other people? How do we put a little bit of a better shield around us? Because empaths have a spongy energy field, why they're called the psychic sponges. And we can learn how to maintain and manage our energy in a way that sort of allows you to get up off your couch and go to Walmart during Christmas and do what you got to do and function in the world in a better way without absorbing all that stuff.
Yeah, right there. You caused me anxiety because you said go to Walmart during the holidays. That's not going to happen. So,
they got the online shopping.
Exactly. But yeah, you're right. It's like a sponge, right? And I always tell the listeners and the students, like, if you're feeling a certain way, question how you're feeling. Am I feeling this way because, or is something or someone or something that I watched making me feel this way? It's a good way to tune in, to gauge how you're feeling. And you know,
what I ask myself, is this me or not? Is it somebody else? You know?
Yeah, exactly. Because you are the equipment, right? And one of my mentors early on had told me back in the day, the price of sensitivity is sensitivity. So if you're tuning into sensitivity, you've got to become aware of, is that sensitivity your own making, or is it sensitivities that you pick up? A lot of times, you know, people forget that the skin is the largest organ on the body. So your skin is actually an antenna to the material world. You can, you know, whether you want to talk about the physical journey, the emotional journey, the mental journey, the material world that we interact with, or the spiritual journey. So remember, you are the equipment, and that price of that sensitivity that you're exploring will become also that sensitivity. And, you know, for the listeners, and I don't know if you knew this as well, Lisa, but many times we have a natural empathic ability. When you see somebody yawn across the room, then all of a sudden you start to yawn. That is an empathic response based on the auric field, based on the energy. And like, I want to yawn right now just because I mentioned yawn. So maybe somebody that's listening to the show is yawning. But that itself is a normal, that's a normal, natural, ancient ability of just human beings expressing empathy and sympathy as well, but through the auric field of, you know, because that's all energy too. A yawn is a release of energy. And so, as you start to have these abilities, did you find yourself not as interacting with society as much, or going to, like, I love sporting events, but I don't go to sporting events much anymore, or concerts, just because there's so much energy, and you feel a little bit depleted, right? So it's almost like you're walking in a bubble. So again, that price of sensitivity becomes a sensitivity.
so difficult. Airplanes are
Yeah.
really difficult, and I travel a lot, so I'm sort of stuck in it. But you're the person next to you sitting in your lap. You can't get away. There's nowhere to go. So I
No.
find airplanes to be sort of my challenge. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's a good, especially the airport can be very crazy with just the way people are, right? So,
Yeah.
and we're going to go to a break here in just a second, but we can come back and we can talk about an exercise that we can do while you're on the airplane. One of the things that I used to do is because you're so close and you're so crammed into the airplane, is you can start to look at people's auric fields and their colors. But we're gonna come back here in just a few minutes, and we're gonna continue to talk about the psychic abilities and the many pathways of spirituality on the ways of life with our special guest today, Lisa Campion. You're listening to Inspired Living. We're going to be right back.
The future of internet radio is here. Om Times Radio, IOM FM. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
My name is Victor Furman. Some call me The Voice. I've always been fascinated with human nature, spirituality, science, and the crossroads at which they meet. Join me Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio, and we'll explore these topics and so much more on Destination Unlimited.
One planet, 7.3 billion people, only one you. Life offers us many opportunities and learning experiences. Are you ready to explore and discover this beautiful planet, the life and energy all around us, the spiritual world, and what is unseen, along with your own personal soul adventure? Marc Lainhart, the Intuitive Prospector, is the spiritual connection you have been prospecting for. Internationally known as a tested and professional clairvoyant medium and spiritual advisor, Marc's work as a metaphysical teacher, medical instructor, radio show host, inspirational writer, and hiking guide are here to help you on a journey of self-discovery, healing, inspiration, education, and a whole lot of spiritual awesomeness. Dare to dream. Dare to explore. Dare to live. For more information on Marc's spiritual practice in Seattle, Washington, please visit marclainhart.com or internet search The Intuitive Prospector.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free. AscendingHearts.com.
You came across someone struggling with hunger. How would you recognize them? Would you notice an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for
summer break because she may not be having lunch again until September?
Or a war veteran who's having a hard time
landing a job and getting back on his feet?
I am the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger. I am hunger in America.
Hunger can be hard to recognize. Learn why at IamHungerInAmerica.org. Brought to you by Feeding America and the Ad Council.
Hey, listeners, welcome back to Inspired Living. Our special guest today, Lisa Campion, who is a master psychic and energy healer and a best-selling author of 2 of the books, The Art of Psychic Reiki and The Energy Healing for Empaths. Lisa, welcome back. And you were talking about, before the break, getting on an airplane and how chaotic that can be for your aura, for your energy, for depletion. So what do you do while you're on the airplane? Give us an example of what you do to manage that, because you travel a lot.
Sure, yeah. One thing that I do is I wear an EMF protection device. Looks like a necklace, but it protects you from electromagnetic frequency, because there's a lot of extra radiation in airplanes.
Sure.
And it also sort of zips up your energy field. So, I do my own practice of like grounding. I use like a breathing practice of, grounding, getting in the soles of my feet. I'm dropping my energy into my tailbone. Imagine standing under a waterfall of light and having that light sort of wash out anything that I picked up, and also kind of really strengthen my bubble. And one of my really go-to things is to excuse myself and go to the restroom, wash my hands, and do that kind of breathing and say, with this water, I'm washing off any of the energy that I picked up. And I love the restroom escapes because you can do it in the middle of Costco, at Thanksgiving dinner, on an airplane, in any time there you're feeling overwhelmed or you're feeling like the energy vampires are getting you. We can just kind of take a break, reset ourselves, reset our energy field, clear everything out, reset the boundary. That I'd imagine even that big bubble of white light around you, and that just does the trick for me when I do it.
Yeah, and I always refer to it as, for myself, as the boy in the bubble. I put myself in a bubble, expend my energy out, and and one of the things that when I first started to come into this journey of these tools, again, because these are all different, tools that you can use, is the power of visualization. Professional athletes, academics, they use visualization to manifest what they're trying to accomplish and focus. I would say your focus determines your reality. So visualization, for the listeners out there, can take you really far, as far as, if you're feeling a certain way, like, I like the, getting up and going to the restroom real quick and using water, right? Because water is a very great tool to use as well. So the little things that are free to everybody: air, breath, water, movement, these are all important. But in the first part of the show, we talked about the word psychic and that meaning. And I want to just get your perspective because there is a difference between being a psychic and being a medium, because a lot of people confuse those two, myself included when I first started, because I am a psychic and I am a medium, but there's a big difference between the two. And I just want to kind of point that out for the listeners.
Yeah, I mean, psychics are to me sort of a more general term, it's like, as a psychic, I might be looking at your past lives, reading the contracts you have between your people, maybe helping you explore what's happening in your future, helping you make decisions about things. I'm a pretty good medical intuitive, so I, might be doing some medical intuition. And, mediums are psychics who specialize in talking to dead people. They're and facilitating communication between the living and the dead. It's such a beautiful, and I always say, I'm not a medium, but mediumship happens.
Sure.
When
Yeah, of course.
does, when it needs to happen, when it's what's going on. If I need to sleep in the hotel room, I don't know what it is, Mark, but it's like Murphy's Law. They're going to put me in the haunted hotel room every single time. And so mediumship might happen, so I can get a good night's sleep in the hotel. And, I think, mediums are really helping, just people sort of like that. We have midwives. I think of mediums as death wives, like helping it's very sacred work.
Yeah, death duelists,
Yeah, death duelists, death wives, helping the people who have transitioned, maybe, need some closure with the living people, or living people need closure with the people who have passed. And it's really lovely work. And my gift is more, I think of myself as a soul reader. So really tuning in to who you are at the level of your soul and helping you understand, like, if you could pull your soul down here and talk to it for a little while, how would that help you make decisions or understand your purpose, or help you with some of the tricky relationships you have in your life. That's a little bit more the way that I do it.
Yeah. Well explained, and I always point that out because when I first, and the reason I point it out is because when I started this journey, I didn't know that there was a difference between the two, and it was only, again, through years of studying and testing and failures, going, oh, okay, the psychic is more, like you said, based on the human soul's experiences, the day-to-day interactions, marriage, relationships, career, angels, contracts, ascended masters, inspirers, and then the mediumship, because I was talking to both of my brothers who had made their transition into spirit years previous, that's where I was like, well, what is the difference, right? So for the listeners, I just point that out, that the mediumship is actually talking to those that lived a physical incarnated life, not to do with angels, not to do with ascended masters. I believe in all those, but those are different, and that's where more of a psychic can help you, like you said, the soul to soul work. So one of the things that I find in this journey, and a lot of times when I bring up these examples is because it's my example personally, and I struggled and went through a lot of stuff. We talk about the word trust a lot. Trust your abilities. Or for me, as a Star Wars kid growing up in the early 70s, trust the Force, right? So
Yeah.
what advice would you give, or how would you help people with your students and what you do? How can you help them to trust their intuition of things that are ongoing that they don't understand? And it may be, frightening to them. Again, what we don't understand can lead us to that place of fear, religious upbringing. I was raised in Catholicism, so I had a lot of confusion in the early years of my journey. But how would you help somebody that comes to you and says, "Hey, Lisa, you say trust all the time, but how can I really apply trust in my intuition with this world that's just full of so many different, distractions and interactions?"
Yeah, I think it's one of the most challenging things that people who are new to exploring their psychic abilities come to. And I think, like, for me, our intuition, our psychic, I also make a distinction between our intuition and psychic ability, so that our intuition is our inner knowing, our
Yep.
inner wisdom. Like, it's like you're getting information from your higher self. Or psychic is where we're getting information from outside of us, like you're talking to an angel or a master or Uncle Fred. And most of us start with intuition, so we have a feeling, like I have a good or bad feeling about that, or I don't know why I know, I just know, we feel, there's a disturbance in the force. So we're feeling like, that's an intuitive response. And I think that was also my religion when I was a kid, Star Wars. It's the only thing that made sense to me, considering what I was experiencing. So I totally get it. And I think that, like, the real psychic messages come through with a very neutral emotional tone. Like, it's just kind of like a fact, like, oh yeah, that's the thing you should pay attention to. Whereas our inner like turmoil is like very triggered. Like, you might be like feeling a lot of fear or anxiety. Let's say you're worrying about your kids. You're a parent. You're worrying about your kids, and that worry is just a normal human parental thing. You're like, how do I know it's, if I'm just worrying or if there's something wrong with the kids? In my experience, if there's even something wrong, you might just get a nudge that feels sort of unemotional, even though you think you might feel emotional about that. And that's a really great way to kind of start paying attention to what, if you're just sort of looping in your own anxiety, which so many of us do, chances are good that's not a real intuitive hit. That's just what's, going on inside our heads. And the real intuitive message has like a kind of emotionally neutral tone to it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So that's a good way. And I think, we know what happens when we don't listen to our intuition. The problem is our mind is, argues. Like, let's say you meet somebody for the first time and you've got like, that person, I don't trust that person, they're up to no good, like, I just can't. And then your mind's like, oh gosh, Lisa, what do you mean? Don't be so mean. Everybody else likes that person. What's wrong with you? And we know what happens when we overwrite that, our intuition. We learn the hard way that we should have trusted our gut, right?
Yeah, exactly. And one of the two reminders and mantras that I use all the time is what we resist will persist, and the lesson repeats until it completes. And so trust in your intuition, because we also have this thing that we all, as humans, that we have to, this survivability tool, which is called the ego. And the ego is all about competition, opinion, surviving. Again, we're talking, hundreds of thousand years of the human consciousness, expanding and evolving. And along the way, the ego still comes with us, because back, we go back 10,000 years, it was more not having a conversation like we're having today. It's about, okay, where's my next meal coming from? Where's my survivability? That ego still resides in the human consciousness. And one of the things that I tell listeners and my students all the time is you got to get past, you got to put the ego to the side. Like, name your ego and say, okay, there's a time and place for ego. But if you want to develop your abilities, and that word intuition, which is you're investing in your own self. If you pay tuition to a college, you're going to a college to better yourself in your journey. Investing in your own intuition is investment in yourself, but you also got to become aware of your own ego, because it's the ego, like you said, it's going to trap you and be like, I should have trusted my gut and I didn't, and I got kicked in the teeth because of it, because of this person, because all humans have that. But we know, and you know this very well, Lisa, that not everybody's awakened. Not everybody's on the same journey that we are on. Everybody's in their own place. But as Carl Jung, the famous psychologist, Jung used to say, who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakens. And if I had to do it over again, I probably would have got my degree in psychology, because the field of the brain is so amazing and so mysterious and curious to me. I mean, Einstein always said it was one of the most complex 3.5 pound objects in our head, that it's just, it's an anomaly to the universe, right? And everybody has a brain, but not everybody uses their brain. So as far as the journey that you're on, is, you're going to hear from teachers like Lisa that's going to say, trust the process, trust in your abilities. And again, I'm using Star Wars because they used to say trust in the Force. And I guarantee anybody listening to this show, at some point in your life, if you ever saw Star Wars, you tried to use the Force. At some point in your life, you tried to move an object by using the Force. I guarantee it. I'm still trying. It hasn't worked yet, but what you can do is start to change the perception of your mindset. And Dr. Wayne Dyer said this all the time. If you change the way you look at things, the things that you look at start to change. And that's how you start to trust in your abilities to use the Force, or to use your psychic abilities. So you also, in one of the, as an author, you had a book about talking about Reiki. Let's talk real quick about just what is Reiki, because maybe somebody's hearing that term for the first time, and how that is also a part of the psychic world, energy healing, and where that philosophy comes from as well, because that's a big part of what you do as well.
Yeah, Reiki is a really gentle but powerful hands-on energy healing technique from Japan. We can think about it as acupuncture without needles, and it uses universal life force energy to help people heal. And when I learned Reiki in 1999, and it was still pretty fringe back then. It was still kind of another oddball thing to do. These days, there are over 800 hospitals in the United States that have full-time Reiki staff. It's, part of the complementary and alternative medicine. In many hospitals, it's used for pain-free pain relief, drug-free pain relief, and pain clinics. And pre and post-surgery, it's used to help people going through chemotherapy, to lessen the side effects of chemo. And so there's just been a lot of scientific study that has really proven the benefit of this really gentle energy healing technique. And to me, it's a bit of a miracle, because anyone can learn how to do it. It's not hard. It doesn't take very long. You don't have to go to 3 years of school to become you have to go to 3 years of school to become an acupuncture, and you don't have to do that with Reiki. Learn it in a weekend. And then you have sort of the power to heal in your own hands. There are self-healings, you can do self-healing, you can do healing on your friends, your family, your pets, your house plants, you can Reiki your food, kind of like a kind of prayer or blessing. And I find it to be a really beautiful starting place for people who really want to start the awakening process that we've been talking about. And I think that yoga, Reiki, and meditation are the three gateways of awakening for so many people, for most people that I work with. So it also makes you way more psychic. So and that's why I wrote a book called The Art of Psychic Reiki. I was teaching Reiki, and I was teaching psychic development classes sort of side by side. And I found people would just take both sets of classes, and it made perfect sense, because they take Reiki and it would pop open their psychic ability. Then they would need a little training about how to handle that, and how to bring them together so that maybe they could use their intuition and their psychic ability inside the Reiki sessions we're doing.
Well said. I like how you said acupuncture without the needles. I haven't heard that term, and I'm going to actually share that with my wife, because she gets Reiki done once a month, and I've had both Reiki and acupuncture. And and just, for the listeners out there, everything Lisa and I are talking about today, it's not new medicine. It's not new ways of thinking. These are very ancient concepts that have been used for thousands of years. Reiki, going back to Japan, dates back to, I couldn't tell you, but it dates back a long time, and it has been in use. But what I love about today's society, and one of the things I do like about today's society, is that we are progressing. We've progressed to where science and spirituality are shaking hands, and there is empirical data that shows that there are benefits from things like you said, meditation, Reiki, even if it's a placebo effect, that shows you the mind is very, very powerful in the ability to self-heal from what we go through in life. And again, it used yoga. I use Qigong, which is a form of movement, which is the mother of Tai Chi. And Qi is actually your life force energy. Qigong is the study of your own life force energy. I can't do yoga as much because I'm a little bit older, a little bit wiser, but a little bit more rigid and stiff from my previous life of doing what I did. And so Qigong is a little bit more user friendly for the older generations. And people in Asia get up by the thousands with the rising sun and do Tai Chi and Qigong and yoga. So movement is a big part of the psychic abilities. If we just break it down to that, just movement and breath can be very, very powerful for the development of your psychic abilities. And I'd also say to the listeners, give yourself patience, give yourself grace, one day at a time. Lao Tzu said it best, the journey of 1,000 miles always begins with that one step. If you're fascinated and you're curious about what Lisa and I are talking about today, and you want to start learning this, then reach out to Lisa, and you can go to her website. Is there any other websites you want to promote for the show besides just your main site, lisacampion.com? Is there anything else where people can find you to start inquiring?
That's the one I got. I got it.
Okay.
Where to go. I have a YouTube channel that's got a lot of free resources, and I do have my own podcast called The Miracle of Healing. You can check out my podcast too, The Miracle of Healing. But yeah, the thing is, like, I think it's all of those things you can find on my website, and I really love to talk to people, so I think come by my website and leave me a message, and I'll get back to you.
Yeah, perfect. The one-stop shop. I'm the same way. I just have one site, and from one site you can get to what you're prospecting for, because everybody's looking for something different. So make sure to check out Lisa's podcast and her YouTube channel. What is the name of that podcast again?
It's called The Miracle of Healing.
Miracle of Healing. And can people get that wherever they get their podcast from?
Yeah, wherever you get your podcast, you can find it.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, there you go. Make sure to go check that out. Let's see. This show, again, I could talk to you for hours, Lisa. It goes by so quick. So let's ask an important question here. For those that are struggling or with burnout or being overwhelmed, let's face it, in today's chaos society with everything going on around the world, for those that are struggling, what are a few simple energy clearing practices that you could share with us today to bring some relief to somebody that's listening to the show right now or later on down the path that would help with everything that we've been talking about, from breath to meditation to visualizations to Reiki to healing to movement? What's something that you could help the listeners out with today, and what you know and do?
I think there's something about being, standing outside. One of the best ways to ground is to be outside barefoot on the ground, which I can't do because I live in New England and it's freezing. But that time outside. I take a walk every day, and I quiet walk. So I walk my dog to the beach. And I think this is such a noisy world that we live in now, Mark, and that if you really want to ground and center yourself and you want to expand your gifts, that needs to happen inside a quiet space. So maybe, spend more time in quiet. It's very hard. Our world is very noisy. Don't turn on the podcast. Don't turn on the radio. Don't turn on the TV. Spend some time with yourself. And that's what they used to write above the door of the mystery school, is know thyself. And I think that psychic development and all these spiritual pursuits we're doing are really all about getting to know ourselves better. That's sort of the ultimate journey. The ultimate destination is inside. I think you said that in a beautiful way already. And so finding some quiet time, let your nervous system settle. I think our nervous systems just go all crazy when we're in a constant state of noise and activity. So take some time. Maybe you like to meditate, but if you don't, just quiet walk, or fold laundry with no noise on. When we do those activities, we drop into the alpha brainwave state, and that's when we're psychic. That's when our intuition opens, our creativity. And you can try this really fun exercise of write a question in your psychic journal and then go stare out the window and watch the grass grow, or fold laundry, or take a shower. Get their best in the shower. I don't know if that's true for you, but so many of us get into that alpha brainwave state, and then be aware of what answers arise in you. What are you feeling? What are you sensing? What are you knowing? What are you experiencing? You might have like an aha moment, and then again record it in your journal, because if you don't, it's going to slide by. And I think getting more quiet, being outside in nature and being more quiet is.
Yeah, well said. Or as I always like to say, take the time to disconnect so you can make that time to reconnect. And you asked what I do because I have a reading coming up on Friday here, and one of the things that I'll do for because I do in-person readings and online, and so this is an in-person reading. But what I'll do is I'll actually clean my house. There's nothing more humbling than cleaning the toilet before a reading because it does quiet you and it does get you out of your mindset. But I love that you said nature because I think that is probably the biggest thing that I've learned. It's funny because we have a big storm coming through Seattle right now. It's actually called an atmospheric river. So it's dumping tons of rain and water and our rivers are flooding. But I love storms because storms are a cleanser. And so I actually, before the show, I went out and stood in the grass because we don't have snow here. I know it's in New England. I live there. It can get very cold. But maybe just go out and stand in the snow in your bare feet and do that cold therapy, right? But I stood out in the rain and just kind of just took in the nature because when we reconnect with nature, healing begins. And I always remind people that my church is nature and my religion is love. And I've learned a lot from nature in this last year because I've been working with plant medicines as well. Because when you get kind of bored with the mundane of your abilities, you want to explore and go deeper. And plant medicine has really unlocked the door to my healing and my transformation. So again, nature is a big component of doing the work, but also staying grounded and balanced without it being overwhelming on the journey. Because again, one day at a time, and you can get sick doing this. If you're not regulating and balancing, it can take a toll because it is an energy depletion. So well said with nature. Totally agree with you 100%. And I think a big part of the way the world is because we've disconnected from nature. We've moved to, big cities, concrete cities. We've gotten away from nature. And I think at some point we will return, whether we want to or not. Mother Nature is always the landlord and tenant. She can evict anytime she wants, as I remind people. So thank you for sharing that exercise. And just, for the last few minutes of the show, I always like to ask my guests, who or what inspires you on this daily journey that we call life, in the work that you do to be in service and to help others? What are some things that inspire you?
I think it's having my own podcast and being on podcasts like this is really connecting with the other thought leaders and luminaries, who are out there writing books and doing podcasts and sharing their wisdom with the world. And there's so many of us and we're all in so much alignment, so much harmony, so much, saying in agreement, saying the same thing, experiencing the same thing. So I feel like I'm part of a network of luminaries. We're kind of here bringing light to the world, and I find extreme comfort in that, and I'm glad I'm not doing it alone because it would be really hard to do that, and I just feel like we're all connected to each other through this sort of web of light, and everybody who's sort of waking up and finding themselves in a spiritual awakening joins that web of light. And I know things are crazy in the world right now, and I still sort of feel hopeful that as humanity, we're going to lean towards the light, choose love, lean towards the light, and choose to continue to awaken, and that really inspires.
All you need is love, right? So, and I think that, I know that we're more and more people, especially the generations behind us, are awakening. They're awakening to different truths. They're awakening to a much more simplified world. And even though the world is crazy, and you said the light, and one of the quotes that popped in my mind is from Rumi, who I love Rumi, and he talked about, the wound is the place where the light enters you. And we've all been wounded. Life wounds us all. But if you really want to see an awakening and transformation, start to look at your natural abilities. Start to look at the psychic, the intuition, the mediumship, whatever your calling is being called to do. And seek out people like Lisa. Visit her website, listen to her podcast, go to her YouTube channel. Because honestly, if you would have said to me, Lisa, 20 years ago that I'd been talking to you, or I would have done all that I've done in the spirituality world, I would have laughed. I would have said, that's not even what I was focused on doing. This is not the work that I thought I'd be doing. But now that I'm doing it, I love it. And I get to, talk to great people like yourself and get the, continue to add to my library of knowledge and wisdom and education, which that's what life is all about. So I just want to say, thank you for what you're doing. Thank you for being a luminary. Keep moving forward. It can be a lonely path at times if you're on the spiritual awakening pathway. Reach out to mentors, reach out to communities, people of like-minded that can share, as I always say, iron sharpens iron, because that's important to to grow. And growth doesn't happen overnight. It's a small watering each and every day to finally to where that rose will bloom when it's ready to bloom. So I want to just say thank you for being on Inspired Living. You're very inspiring. I hope the listeners find that as well, and they'll visit your sites or get your books. And any last wisdom for us before we depart?
I just want to thank you so much, Mark, for the work that you're doing and the light that you are in the world, and your knowledge and your courage in bringing that out into the world. And thank you so much for having me today.
Oh, my pleasure. And keep going, keep moving, and we just want to say, if you want to check out Lisa's work, you can go to lisacampion.com. She's a master psychic, an energy healer, and an author who has dedicated her life to helping people access their intuition and inner power, which you all have. So I just want to say thank you to the listeners. Happy holidays as we move forward to the end of 2025. I don't know where the year went, but we're moving into the year of the 1 as we complete the year of the 9. And just one day at a time, take that deep divine breath and just keep moving forward. I know there's a lot going on, but until our next soul adventure together, be kind, be caring, be compassionate, and most importantly, wherever you're at in this world, dare to dream, dare to explore, dare to live, and discover the diamond within. We'll see you next time here on Inspired Living.